Hello, everybody. This is Paul Godfrey. Hope you are having a great day so far. I'm going to have to make this one quick because I just finished making dinner and took it out of the oven. In all fairness, it's a freezer meal, but I'm going to act like I made it anyway. So today, we're going to talk a bit about the power of the purse. Like I said in my first video, that's what I'd be addressing next. Generally speaking, right here you have it, the power of the purse is the influence that legislatures have over public policy, basically because they get to say where the money goes. So even though the president makes a budget request, uh, Congress and the legislative branch gets to either say yes or no, you have that money to spend. And so now, in light of that, let's look at two new upcoming blockchain technologies, even though Dr. Lehman Baird may call it not blockchain but Hashgraph. They are Libra, Facebook's new digital asset, potentially digital currency, and then also Hedera Hashgraph a little bit, but more Libra than anything else. So first, we want to start with Mark Zuckerberg. Initially, he started with a phrase when he started Facebook: move fast and break things. Unless you are breaking stuff, you are not moving fast enough. He has changed since then. The new motto, this was from a 2014 article, says move fast with stable infrastructure. It may not be quite as catchy as move fast and break things, but it's how we operate now. So they're moving fast, but with a stable infrastructure. Though we may come back with that infrastructure and break things in just a moment. Now, there are relationships between Libra and Hedera Hashgraph, and that is the fact that, well, this is a little funny, bit of humor. Hedera Hashgraph took out an article in which some newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, saying imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If I recall reading that a bit about that, apparently Facebook had meetings with Hedera Hashgraph and discussion of their governing council. So in order to get a little bit of understanding of Libra, we will look at Hedera Hashgraph because from what I've seen, there's more information out on Libra. My apologies, Hedera Hashgraph, especially in a lot of the things like, for instance, the patent that they have issued. Dr. Lehman Baird, he owns Swirlds, or is a stockholder in Swirlds, and this is the technology for which the U.S. government has issued a patent. Blah, 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 big fancy words. Anyway, onto Hedera, so we can get an idea of why we're talking about the power of the purse. So it's a truly decentralized governance model, and that's what we're going to focus on, governance. And again, power of the purse. You have, this is from Hedera Hashgraph's white paper. Again, talking about the executive summary of DLT here. Governance, again, they bring it up. A public ledger should be governed by representatives from a broad range of market sectors. They need expertise in economics and currency markets so they can manage the cryptocurrency. That is basically what they'll be doing is that they'll have a governing council. And their governing council will have, I believe it's 37, council up to 39 global organizations, large NGOs, non-governmental organizations. And so we go to Libra right here, overview, the association and council. Where is it? I just had it. Where was it? Section 75 members. Here we go. A note on Facebook Inc.'s role. Facebook teams played a key role in the creation of the Libra Association and the Libra blockchain, working with other founding members. While final decision-making authority rests with the association, Facebook is expected to maintain leadership role through 2019. And so basically, what ended up happening is they, I believe, we'll hit on it a bit, but there were something like 28, 30 different companies. Each had to pay $10 million to be able to operate a node. That's also to provide startup funding for Libra and its distributed ledger network. So now we've got a bit of an idea of governance, specifically how Libra and Hedera works. We're going to look at the idea of voting in the United States, and then you'll see how I'm bringing this all together in a bit. And then ultimately, why I think Ripple is probably, well, not Ripple, the technology which Ripple has to offer, and various white papers advertised by Ripple are better for you as a person in your digital rights, and such as voting. But we'll get to that in a bit. So back in the United States, we started. You had to be a white male, and you had to own property. Back when the revolution happened, in order to vote, again, white male, and you had to have there were property qualifications. You can see some of them right here for the colonies. Then in the early 19th century, universal manhood suffrage basically came around. So from the 1820s to the 1850s, by 1856, you just had to be a white male. Just that expanded even farther. Suffrage did. Civil War, obviously in the United States, and the passage of the 15th Amendment. Then later into the early 20th century, you had women's suffrage. So now it doesn't matter what race, ethnicity you were, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. And then finally, recently, I say recently, in a 250-year scheme, so to speak, you've got the 26th Amendment. Basically says if you're 18 years or older in the United States, you get to vote. I believe that was a result of Vietnam, especially. You could, for instance, be drafted at 18 and sent to die for your country, but you couldn't vote. The point is, generally speaking, you can see how there's been a gradual expansion of voting rights, and having people that you can elect so they represent your interests in the United States government. So going back, here it is, 10 million. As of the publishing of this article from Libra, what was it, July 12th? 28 companies. They each paid a $10 million bootstrap fee. So that's $280 million, over $250 million, basically, to get this Libra project started. But again, that means these 28 founding members, major global corporations, will control the governance of this currency. I think you can see where this is all going. Other applications, just on a side note, Tezos, something that they're pretty known for, having a voting process to change their protocol. But again, I believe you have to, I could be wrong, if you have a computing background, please feel free to correct me. Tezos, you have to be able to stake, or at least run a node. You don't necessarily have to own any, whatever Tezos' currency coin is. I believe it is proof of stake, right down here in the bottom left, proof of stake. So that's how you vote. You have to have money to vote. We already went this, we can get rid of it. Now, some people will say that they're jaded. I'm even somewhat jaded regarding the voting process. There's this pretty interesting article about how Princeton did this study that regarding the likelihood of a law being passed. And so here on the x-axis, you have potentially popular support for a law, with this side being 0 and this side being 100%. And then this y-axis is the likelihood that the law would be passed. So again, 0 to 100. Now again, an ideal republic world where the representatives, it's this line right here. So if you have 100% vote, there's a 100% chance the law would be passed, and as you go down, less support, the less likelihood it would be passed. But as the 20-year study from Northwestern University and by a Princeton professor, actually both Princeton and Northwestern University professors did, they realized that regardless of popular support, whether it was 0% or 100%, the likelihood of a law being passed was 30%. And then, except when you slightly skew this and you change it from the entire population just to the wealthiest 10% of the population, this is what happens. So this is for everybody when you take into account the whole population. It doesn't really matter whether or not somebody supports things. But if you go to just looking at the top 10%, this is the line. So, for instance, if the top 10% don't like something, there's a near zero chance of it getting passed. And it's not right on the line. There's a bit of difference, but you can see how it's much more reflective of laws being passed of what people with money want. So why am I bringing this all up? Some people will say, well, the old system's bad. It doesn't represent us anyway. We need to get rid of it. There are deficiencies in it, and things do need to be changed. I'm not saying how or that should be done, but what I think is important to realize is at least you have the ability to participate in the system. So, for instance, Article 4 of the Constitution says, the United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a Republican form of government. And again, our system isn't perfect, and we should be able to do things better. Heaven knows I'm jaded, but at the same time, at least you can put your chips in the table, so to speak. Maybe that's not the best metaphor. You have a vote, regardless of as long as you're 18 years or older, and it doesn't matter, you get the right to vote. Now let's go back to these. Where is it? Right here. So governance models. Hedera Hashgraph will use H-bars, and the governance of H-bar will be 39 companies. So the question you need to ask yourself is, are you part of those 39 companies? Do you own stock in each of those 39 companies? Do you have a say in how those 39 companies are run? It's just something to think about regarding, again, the legislature and the power of the purse. Libra, I believe it was over here actually, 28 founding members, and they are the ones who will be running Libra's Association, the Libra Association Council. So again, if you don't have a controlling share of stock in any one of those 28 companies, whatever they may be, the question is, what say do you have, and how that money's spent and where it goes. Again, that's just something to think about. And this is what I think the advantage of the Interledger protocol is, and the technology that Ripple offers. You all have heard of Codius. It's 5 years old at this point. They've been on it for over 5 years. Codius created something called Smart Oracles, which allows you to basically verify outside events. It's real important. It's how COIL was formed. It was part of COIL and Interledger protocol, spelled out COIL. Smart oracles are used, but don't quote me on that. Again, I am not very proficient at the programming side of this. I'm trying to learn, but just bear with me. Again, if I'm wrong, correct me. But again, one of the things for Codius and Smart Oracles that you can see is voting. It's one of the uses. In the future, smart contracts can be used to enforce democratic, bureaucratic, and other types of control structures over assets or even organizations, potentially even governments. It's a pretty big thing. It's a very big thing. Another one comes to mind. I don't know much about it, but Chainlink also. They use the decentralized Oracle network. I don't know much about that. I'd have to read more on their white paper. But here's a big thing, the decentralization of Ripple. It's a really good article on Ripple Insights, by the $1 trillion man, David Schwartz. Specifically this highlighted part at the bottom regarding control. You have to know about proof of work versus the ILP consensus protocol, but it says every user is the ultimate authority of the code his or her server runs, and therefore the rules under which it operates. If a server's code does not support a particular set of rules, then that server can never operate under those rules. This means validators cannot conspire to enable a network rule change that does not have broad user support. So in short, anybody can run an XRP node, a node on the XRP ledger, and they get to choose whoever they want to include on their unique node list. So the point is, by being able to participate in the system, anybody can do it, and they get to choose who they trust on the network, which is a very big deal. If you don't like the way something's being run, you can take it off. So coming back to things, I pulled this up. One thing Now here's why I think bringing it all back and trying to bring it all together, Libra and Hedera Hashgraph has not been as public. They've been a bit public. Well, I don't know. I haven't done an analysis on that, but Facebook is huge. Everybody knows Facebook. Not everybody knows Hedera Hashgraph. A basic understanding of money. It's any item or verifiable record that is generally accepted as payment for goods and services, payment of debts, taxes, etc. So if you can use it to pay for something, store value right here, medium of exchange, then generally speaking, it's defined as money. Now, everybody was concerned about Libra and its privacy. Congresswoman Maxine Waters talking about we've got huge concerns over privacy, and then also there was information about, it's been about a month now, 2 months. I meant to get to this sooner. Basically everybody was concerned with privacy, and I'm not sure if it was the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury stating that we would make sure that Libra goes through a vast number of requirements, make sure they fit with all the regulations. But what I think is really important is, you see right here, as part of, it's in the Article 1 of the Constitution, Section 8, the power of Congress. Congress shall have power to coin money and regulate the value thereof, and foreign coin. One of the other powers they have is provide the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States. So here Congress has the power to coin money, regulate its value, and also securities. I'm not really touching on securities today. I'm not making any statement about what is or is not a security because I just don't know enough about it. I'm going to research it more into that. But in short, what I think should be the take home from this is, everybody in Congress is looking at least those people who seem to be against it, they're looking at privacy, and you should be concerned about whether it's intentional or unintentional. Congress divesting its power of the purse into 28 or 37 global companies over which you have no control, and then they get to control where the money goes. Granted, again, being somewhat jaded, this line versus this line, but again, at least you have a right to vote, a say in it, as opposed to not owning any stock in any company and getting completely excluded. So I think it's really important, especially insofar as Ripple has created something 5 years ago, Coil, that will allow platforms that will provide for transparent governance. That's huge. It's very big. It's very big to preserving your digital rights and ensuring that others are doing well with their digital responsibilities. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Be kind to each other. Be well to yourself. And please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, critiques, comments, whine, beast, moans, groan, leave a comment. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a good night. Dinner time.